there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
Welcome to the Barside Spurs podcast, and today joining me once again is Rich. How are you doing, mate? I've heard you're a very, very busy man.
I am a very busy man. I'm a very warm man as well today, mate. I think you're a bit the same, yeah.
Oof. I tell you what, I'm doing this from the bottom of my garden in my summer house stroke pub, which I've converted into a pub, but I could fire clay in here at the moment. I'm losing a pound a minute, I'm sure. So it's tough, but we have to do what we do to get a pod out. So we are soldiers.
Yeah. Never ever doubt our dedication.
So, well, I thought what we'll do is we're sort of going kind of chronological order. So the last time we spoke, there's been a fair bit that's happened since then. I don't think we've talked about the Fulham away cup game, have we? So I think we must deal with that shit show. Were you surprised by the amount of changes, Rich?
I was surprised by quite how much different it was. And I think I said at the time, fucking hell, I've got to watch Lo Celso in a Spurs shirt again. That, and the minute I saw that, I thought we've had it here, and lo and behold, that's what came to pass,
Yeah.
It was too much, wasn't it?
It was. In fact, if I just quickly sort of read through what that team was, just to remind ourselves of it. I was hugely surprised. Forster in goal, Royal, Sanchez, Van der Ven, Davies, Højbjerg, Skip, Lo Celso, Solomon, Richarlison, Perisic. Pretty much, apart from two players, a completely changed team. And in that last pod, when the three of us were on it with
Paul, yeah.
With Paul, yeah, and I remember saying I'd be amazed if he makes wholesale changes because it won't be a good look if we mess that game up. And lo and behold, I'm surprised that's probably his first misstep, if you ask me.
Yes, I think it unfortunately far more important than the actual cup itself. Although I do think it would have been probably a sensible move for them to have gone for that cup. Because it's a relatively straightforward thing to get into the final of that competition. There aren't that many games for a club like us. I thought, we should have thrown a bit at it. But I think more important than actually going out of the cup is that he's burned up a lot of that optimism, hasn't he?
Yeah.
That's the real cost, isn't it?
Totally. I know he came out afterwards and said, without European games, how do I assess these players? But personally, I'm not sure I buy that excuse. Do you see it as an excuse, or do you think he's that's quite being realistic?
I don't know. I mean, I want to be fair to him and say, I don't think he's fielded a team that he thought were going to lose. I think he's obviously seen enough in training and in substitute appearances to believe that they would have been a cohesive enough unit to turn Fulham over. But it smacks a little bit of I don't know, after the event, and I guess that's to be expected. I don't know. I think he would have been far more sensible to have not done it. But I can see the point. If I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he's definitely talking bollocks, because he has still only had a handful of games as manager, and some of those players, it was, Sanchez has now gone. One or two of them players we saw we should probably not see again. I doubt some of them will make the Premier League 25 when it comes out. And maybe, that's the value in it. It would have been nice if he'd have not done it. But
I suppose we should give him the benefit of the doubt, shouldn't we? So far he's been a very open and truthful sort of person. So if he says that, then maybe we have to kind of take him at his word. and think, well, he does have a limited amount of games. Perhaps making so many changes wasn't the right thing, and maybe he won't do that again. But he may have actually thought Fulham would do likewise, and they didn't. They fielded a strong side. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but we have to say, with that in mind as well, we did lose it on penalties. They
Yeah,
didn't beat
yeah.
us. They didn't beat us in open play. So although we've gone out of that cup, and although to be fair, they took the lead, and it was. I mean, I've blanked it from my memory in great big swathes, but for what I can remember, it was a woeful performance throughout. Really.
Yeah.
They didn't actually beat us in open play, did they? So he didn't get it that wrong, because penalties is a bit of a lottery.
Well, I mean, yes and no. He did have to bring on basically the cavalry, didn't he? I mean, he brought on five subs in the end, I believe it was. So a whole raft of subs eventually came on. Richie got a goal, so hallelujah.
And then was hooked.
Yeah, I mean, his overall game wasn't great, was it? But it was a nice cross by Perisic, and he couldn't miss that one.
Yeah.
So at least he got that under his belt. But I think the fact that he made so many subs, I think he realised that this was drifting away from him. We got back into it, as I said, with Richie's goal, and we did look the more likely of the two teams to nick the winner. But they were pretty resilient with their full strength side, and they took it to pens. And then lo and behold, who misses the pen?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
that's a shame, really, because I know we'll talk about him later on, because he has gone, and I will say I am glad, but I do feel for the guy. I mean, at least he had the cojones to get up and take the penalty. But why did he take one?
Yeah, I mean, was there some talk about somebody else sort of turning? No, I don't want to take one, and if that's the case, like, who was it?
Yeah, yeah, Alvin.
Yeah, exactly.
Name and shame.
Exactly this, I mean, you do have to feel for him, because he's had his faults as a player, and he's never been quite what we'd hoped that he would be, but he's always put in his shift, and his attitude's always been good, and he's never even in that game, he never shirks what he's asked to do, does he?
No, exactly that. And he actually had a reasonable game in that match. And stepping up to take the penalty, the third penalty, he didn't have to do that. He probably knew his days were numbered at the club. But he stepped up. And considering, like you say, at one point, I think in one match, he was actually booed onto the pitch, let alone being booed off it. So I think that shows that there is a he's got some character. And I did feel for him at that point. I felt, I did tweet straight after that, at least you had the balls to step up and take it. So, que sera, penalties are, as the cliche goes, a lottery. But, we only missed the one penalty. It could have gone either way. Oh, well,
Yeah. It's over. I mean,
it's over.
Done.
Yeah.
It's done, and it's a shame, I mean, if we're talking in cliches, there are no easy cups, and so we can't say if we'd have stayed in it that we'd have beaten Liverpool or City or whoever it is that ends up getting to the final on the other side of the draw. But I do think it's a bloody shame. I do think it's a missed opportunity.
Yep, absolutely, mate. So if we just do a quick sort of roundup of the transfer window, because that's in sort of chronological order, that's the one that follows next, really. So we got in overall Vicario, Van de Ven, Solomon, Madison, Brennan, Johnson, Phillips, and Valise. And you probably can count Udogi, although we kind of technically acquired him the year before, but he turned up. Out the door go Sanchez and Dumbele, Tanganga, Winks, Regulon, whatever you want to say it, Spence and Rodon. We still don't know about Lloris, what's happening with him. That's an interesting one, but pleased overall at that? Or do you think we're a bit light still?
I mean, I was of the mind, a bit like Anjad said, it was more important to get shot of some players. I'm quite happy with who we've got in. It would have been nice to have had one or more others in, but I suspect they'll be working on that towards Christmas. I mean, I suppose there is an element of Ange is still assessing where he thinks we need to recruit and to go out and almost panic buy on the back of selling Kane now would probably be a mistake.
Mm.
We are light up front, aren't we? I mean, Richarlison is still got a huge question mark over him, and I'm sure we'll come to him again. Son, without wanting to sort of move it on, Son looked a much better player on Saturday. So, we've got options up there, but it would have been nice to have had somebody sitting on the bench, perhaps. The one that I missed was, did Scarlett go out on loan in the end?
Yes, actually he did, didn't he? I think he went to Ipswich, I want to say. I think he's
Yeah, because
Ipswich.
he played the
Yeah.
other night, didn't he? And I
Yeah.
was surprised to see it because I
Yeah,
thought
and
it'd been a done deal already.
yeah, and Divine, I think he's gone out as well to, is it Port Vale
Yeah,
or something, isn't it?
Divine has gone to has Alfie Divine gone to Port Vale? Is that
I
why?
think so, yeah. Yeah, and
Is that
he
why
seems
Matey Boy is now suddenly a Tottenham fan or something like that?
yeah. Yeah, that's raised a few sort of eyebrows, isn't it, that one? Because I messaged a few friends about that one, and a couple of sort of Chelsea fans that I know bit really hard on that one, and we're just saying this is the most embarrassing piece of crap they've ever seen in their lives. And I'm like, oh, come on, it's like a bit of fun, but yeah, he's a Port Vale fan, but he's I think he was desperate, isn't he, just to sort of ride on the coattails of having a football song that's his sung at a ground.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Long may it die a death with all the other things that make us cringe. But
Yeah.
on that note, if you've got Chelsea fans telling you it's embarrassing, I think my retort to that would be it's far more embarrassing watching your players push people off the subway in France.
Yeah, totally, totally.
You know,
What do you make of the fact that he got a kit sent to him today from for him and his wife and his kids, and Tottenham basically just did like one of those kind of unboxing things, and they showed him doing that, giving freebies to them. I know a few people have kind of raised their eyebrows at the fact that millionaires are getting freebies from Spurs, but what do you feel about that?
well, millionaires always get freebies, don't they? I mean, if you have
Yeah.
anything to do with the wealthy, which I do for work,
Mm.
you know, it's one of the great ironies of the world, isn't it? If you can afford to buy things, people give them you for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and so I mean, I don't really think anything about it at all. To be honest with you, I don't care a toss either way.
No.
So,
I know what you mean.
I know on our group, Sarah made a very valid point about, the club, if they wanted to create goodwill and decent content, actually they could do a lot better and be a lot more ethical about it in giving kits to club members and to actual fans and stuff. And if they want to generate the content doing that, and I totally agree with her on that. I think that would be
Yeah.
a really good thing to do. But unfortunately, the world we live in, there is very little kudos to be gained for organisations giving things to working class people, is there?
No, exactly. And for companies like this, I don't agree with it, but do you know what I mean? It's like I understand why they're doing it. It's brand building, empire building, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's maybe there are fans of his that aren't actual football fans that will then kind of join and get involved with Spurs. It lends some sort of credibility. When you think about it, like you were saying, really, that it's always the rich people that end up getting these freebies. You talk about film stars who go along to these junkets or go along to press stuff, and then they're given gift box sets from Gucci or something like that, where they get tens of thousands of pounds worth of stuff just to take away because they hope they might wear it and be seen wearing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a symptom of the bloody world, isn't it? Hate the system. I couldn't give a toss whether Robbie Williams, I can't even fucking say his name, whether Robbie Williams got the shirt or not.
No.
I mean, let's be honest. Let's not think that any of them that have ever been seen at a football ground have ever paid for anything. So it's not a new phenomenon, is it?
No, absolutely right.
I mean, who was it that was was it Kardashian that was at the cup final or somebody like that?
I've no idea.
One of them, yeah, watching Woolwich or whoever it was. They made a big deal out of it, and you think, yeah.
I mean, one week they're wearing one shirt, the next week they're wearing another, and it's I suppose, to be honest, we mock, but it's probably a bit similar to us. If you go to the States, you might buy yourself a Knicks top, and then the week after you might get a Red Sox if you're in that area, and it'd be probably sacrilege to those, but they're but they're just thinking, well, pick a sport, pick a team, pick a an area, but you don't care, really, do you? You're just scooping up a few tops from your trip.
Yeah, I must admit, I went to LA, as you know, earlier in the summer, and the biggest shop that I saw in Santa Monica was the British souvenir shop. You've never seen anything like it. It was like an enormous facsimile of a pub. It was called like the Old England Arms or something. This shop, and it was all fucking Union Jacks and coffee
phone
cups
boxes and
Charlie's mug on it, and I just think.
Yeah, they love a bit of it. Yeah, fish and chips, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Anyway,
getting back to the game, I just wonder that in terms of whether we're a bit light, maybe the cup game showed that, but if I may indulge in another cliche, Rome wasn't built in a day. So we're just going to have to, take it step by step. But one of the things I have been really impressed with, and I can't for the life of me think where I've seen it, but I saw someone who talking about one of Ange Postecoglou's biographical books, where basically they were sort of analysing how he goes about transforming a club. And what the insights were very interesting, not just about getting to know everybody at the club, from the tea lady right through to the chairman, and having that same kind of rapport with them, but the kind of, if you like, I suppose, a bit of a culture shock in the rapid changes that he makes at the outset, to be able to then kind of go, okay, this is how things are going to go. But equally, the players that he brings in, the way he talks to them about the project and has plans for them all, and they really, because you listen to any of the players that have come in, they all talk in a way that they were really very, very clear about what if you like, their personal, as we would probably call it, CPD. Their kind of, their professional development plans are going to be, and a lot of them have talked about how they feel that. And I think it was something that Mickey van der Ven said today, that he said it's joyous at the moment. He said, because before I even came in, the manager said to me, we're going to play this particular way. He explained it. He says, and you will make some mistakes to begin with. You'll get better, and I'll help you to get better. But at the beginning, I'd rather you make a few mistakes than kick the ball out over the top of the stadium 3 times. He said, I want to see you play with the ball. And that was, by all accounts, music to his ears. It's given him a lot of confidence to think that, he's going to be allowed to develop, rather than just, as we've seen in the past, slaughtered publicly.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I'm instantly reminded of the interview that Maddison gave not long after he signed, and they said, I guess it was assumed as a question, because I don't remember actually hearing the question that was put to him, but he said, that he'd met Ange, and Ange had said to him, whether you sign or not, this is what I'm going to do to Tottenham, and this is going to be a totally different football club and a different. And he said, after he'd signed, well, that was the thing that swung it, really, and you could tell, I mean, it wasn't, obviously it was a bit PR-y and a bit like, towing the party line, but there was obviously an element of honest enthusiasm about it, and you could tell from within that interview that the spark had been generated already, and like you say, excitement. I mean, I was thinking after the Burnley game, they must be on cloud 9. It must be so affirming that this guy's coming. More for the people that have been there the longest, but those that are part of his plans, that have seen Conte come and go. Maybe a couple that were there for Nuno and for the Portuguese before. That they've, like you say, they've been asked to sort of do a job rather than actually be integral as an individual and as a human being. And that this guy's come in and gone, right, I'm shaking this whole thing to its foundations, and it might take a while to work, but you're going to have to bear with me. And of course, they've got to invest a bit of faith in that and say, all right, well, we'll try it, And I'm thinking of players like Son, who by all accounts had a terrible year last year. And, you know, he's come in and this guy's gone, right, you know, we're going to do this. We're going to throw it all up in the air. Stick with me and it's going to work. And 3 or 4 games in, and aside from the Fulham game, well, fuck me, it's already working.
Yeah.
No. And they must have come off the field on Sunday thinking, yeah, we're really on Saturday, thinking we're really onto something here.
Yeah.
That
He's got that
really
he's got that Ted Lasso believe sign, isn't he, in the dressing room?
Yeah.
They all touch it before they go out. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I know some people have kind of commented. I've seen a lot of, many people say, why did we get rid of Sanchez? But I don't see so much as just, he wants a shot of him, even though, he's looking for that kind of turnover of the old guard. I think he's gone to a lot of the, by all accounts, and, I'm picking this up from what people have said indirectly, that he's gone to the lot of the younger teams and said, look, I want to know who all of you are. And I promise you, I will know who you are. And if you're right for us, there will be a pathway. So he's insisted that all the teams below play the same way. And so when you get rid of some of the players like Sanchez, then what that's doing, I suppose, is clearing a pathway. So even because this isn't an immediate project, so we've got Phillips now, who's kind of, he's a young player, but then someone like Dorrington, who may well step up in the next year or two, and if they're good enough, those kids can see a pathway, which is exactly what should happen. So I think it's all for the positive.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and of course, without wanting to sort of throw everything backwards and into the light of things, projects, and so on that have gone before, this has been the problem for the last 4 or 5 years, and it was also a problem towards the last year or two of the Argentinians' reign. Was that because I mean, when he came in, he did do that. I mean, he brought through players like Mason and Bentaleb, and of course, obviously, Tim Sherwood gave Harry Kane his first start, but he became part of the team the year afterwards. But there was that sort of pathway, and players like Marcus Edwards were around in that peak sort of Pochettino era, and they were tipped to be, and they were always on the edges, but they stopped getting the opportunities. And then when Jose came in, it seemed to stop almost entirely. And with the odd exception, players like Skip, the odd one or two, all of these actually really very good players that our academy and our youth teams have been producing have had to go elsewhere to play football. And
like Medwake.
Yeah, we've seen them leave in droves over years. And I mean, if you look back to this summer, we were looking at potential ways to sort of fill some of the gap for when Kane left. And even as far back as January when we bought Porro, people were talking about bringing Marcus Edwards in as part of the deal. Well, that was a player we let go for next to nothing. In fact, I think we did let him go for actually nothing. When Poch was still there, and they were talking about buying him back for 30 million quid. And I mean, obviously, we haven't done that, but that's the sort of thing that you're setting yourself up to have to do if you don't provide that pathway, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like the right thing. It does feel like a conscious thing that the club has wanted to happen now. Not just because, it is the right thing, but you think of the amount of talent that we have lost and we've tried to convince to stay, and they're like, well, we don't believe it. Now we need to show them, the best ones, that there is a pathway and it is worth it. So, okay, let's get on to the lovely Burnley versus Tottenham game. It ended up 2-5. And Son scored a hat-trick. Romero scored an absolute rocket. And Maddison scored once more. But Burnley were 1-up within 5 minutes. What were you thinking at that point, Rich?
Well, I mean, quite luckily for my health and temper, at 5 minutes into the game, I was still trying to get my legal and safe access to the footage.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Made legal and safe, so I only heard their goal to start with. I didn't see it because I still had a radio commentary on the phone at that point. So, yeah. But when it went, I did sort of think of what we were saying on Friday in the group chat, because I'd looked at their form table and I actually thought they'd started better than they had. And I think I said to you, didn't I? God, I didn't realise Burnley were as bad as they as done as
Yeah,
badly as they are.
yeah,
And you said, that's it, they're going to beat us 3-0 tomorrow, isn't it? And and we
yeah.
and when they scored, I thought, fuck it, we're right, aren't we? This is going to happen now. But I mean, quite quickly, I was able to secure, safe and legal access to the footage, and by the time I was watching it, we'd sort of broken the press a bit, and we'd turned them round, and
Yeah.
from that point in, it's pretty easy sailing, wasn't it?
I think so. I think they just caught us cold a bit, didn't they? They it's a decent attack, but they just caught us a little bit flat-footed and a little bit cold at the beginning. But after that, as you say, we started to work the press, and it started to look a lot more solid overall. The patterns of play were starting to click after about sort of 15 minutes or so. They were wide open. I mean, I like I admire the fact that Burnley have come up playing really attacking progressive football, which has worked in that division. At the moment, it feels a tad naive. But that could also be because we were so strong, and it's really something we're starting to find our gears now and go through them. So by the time we get to half time, we've got Son's beautiful chip shot. That was so clever. I mean, if it hadn't have gone in, the other guy would have handballed it. It would have been a pen, because he tried to swipe it, and Son beat the keeper and the player, who both tried to stop the goal going in. It was beautiful. And then of course we got Romero's Kane-esque absolute screamer, which that had me off my chair. And we blew him away in that second half, really. Sorry, in that first half, I should say. What are your thoughts on those goals?
I mean, they were both beautiful to watch. I mean, they were wonderful, wonderful goals. I did think we were a bit wasteful in that first half,
Yes.
though. It doesn't sound greedy. Like, I think if we'd have been a little bit more, maybe if we'd have played that match in those conditions in 6 or 8 weeks' time, we would have gone in 3 or 4 in at half time, because I think we had plenty of opportunities to just beat the shit out of them before they got to have a half an orange,
Do you know what? I'm glad you said that, Rich, because there's a lot of talk around Postecoglou's style, saying basically that's what he wants. He wants to, for want of a better phrase, to step on their throat.
Yeah.
And not to let them off the hook at all, not to go, right, okay, we've got this one, let's just sort of, because then you start falling back into the patterns he doesn't want. We never give up. We never give up is his mantra. And so that wasteful thing, okay, that's actually still a positive.
Because we're creating the chances. Yeah.
Exactly that, Rich. So and they will, and once it starts to happen, I think we'll handily put away sides like this, like we did to for that game. To be fair, but were Burnley shit, or do you what do you make of them, or was it just that we were so dominant?
No, I thought we were dominant. I thought they were a little bit taken aback by how good we were. I think they are missing some players. You got to be fair to them. They've had some changes. I think they've got a couple of injuries. They've lost some players that they had on loan, didn't they, when they were in the Championship? So, they're a work in progress in themselves. And I think they actually, when they did come at us, there were 1 or 2 occasions where, there was obviously 2 occasions where they did sort of get through and score. I think there were other occasions where they looked actually quite dangerous on the break through the middle of the field, and then they just seemed to, I don't know, they just seemed to panic or take 1 too many touches, or there wasn't the right pass, there wasn't somebody running into the space where you would expect it. So whether it's personnel, whether it's because they're not, maybe it's a change of pace because the Premier League is quicker than the Championship. That's the other thing, But they would have had the time in the Championship to maybe convert some of the chances that they had at the weekend that they didn't get the time to convert at the weekend, largely because we've got the fastest man on earth as a centre half now,
Yeah, and the next one, Brennan Johnson apparently is lightning fast too.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I can't. I absolutely cannot wait to see this.
Mm.
I'm really.
Where does he play though, Rich? Where does he play?
Well, I think he can play anywhere across them. I think he plays on the right, but he's just.
I
I've
mean,
seen him.
would you, sorry to cut you there, mate, but
Yeah.
would you move Kulu to the left and put Son up front and then bring Brennan Johnson in?
I don't know whether Kulu would play. I mean, I think there's an argument for moving Kulusevski around because I think, his effectiveness in that role has been somewhat diminished at times.
Mm.
I mean, of late, obviously he's come back from that injury last season, and whether or not he came back too soon, I don't know. Whether or not it's just a case of having different options, but I mean, we're going to have a bit, aside from the fact that I don't even know if we are crying out for a centre forward, but aside from the fact that we've just lost the centre forward of all centre forwards, we've got, a bit of what's an embarrassment of riches, really, especially now that Porro seems to be finding his feet a little bit more as well. I've seen more encouraging signs from him lately, but yeah, I mean, the idea that we could move Kulusevski about, I think Son is showing that he is far more effective in the middle than on the left, isn't he? That's the thing.
Well, talking about embarrassment of riches, where Richarlison was dropped. And
Yeah.
Son played up front, and I wonder if that will be something that we do going forward. Now, Richie becomes a impact sub, or is it just because Richie played the other day and he was just maybe a bit tired and needed, and we're just rotating? I'm not sure. It looked really well balanced.
I don't know. I mean, this is something I was going to ask you. The fact that I haven't had a minute to sort of do any research and find this out is, my own fault. But it was strange that he was up so soon after scoring at Fulham, right? And I wondered, has he picked up a bit of a knock, and was it a precautionary
I think you
job?
might be right.
I mean, obviously he came on. I mean, I hope it's not signs that he's falling out of favour already. I really hope that's.
No, I referring back to what you said in the last pod, Rich, I think you're right. I think it's just going to take time, and I think he will be fine. But a lot of it is definitely in his head. He's I don't know. He just needs a few to go in. That's what he's very. I mean, all strikers are confident strikers. Players. I think. I mean, Kane's maybe one of the exceptions. He was like Shearer in that way. He just was so single-minded. But generally, that role is for a confidence player, and Richie more so than most. I think he very much seems like it really gets into his head. And he somehow he needs to work that demon out.
Yeah. I mean, I do hope that he gets the opportunity to do it because, I mean, by all accounts, he is a quality player. If he can start finding the target, then he is a hell of a signing a year on. And he offers us a lot more pace than we'll have had there. I don't know on a head-to-head basis how much quicker he is than Son, but I imagine he must be because Son's nearly as old as I am now. So he can't be that quick anymore. But yeah, well, it's one of them. Perhaps it's horses for courses. Perhaps he needs to be in more games that are sort of more wide open, and in that respect, Burnley would have been a good game for him. So I'm hoping that it is a precautionary thing that they rested him, and perhaps before the next time we record a podcast, I'll have to do better at making time to find these things.
Well, he looked dejected, didn't he, when he came off?
Yeah.
I think Romero was doing his usual, like smack him on the back and all that kind of stuff. He loves to belt people around, doesn't he? But he just, the players are fully behind him. I just think he's carrying the burden of like really wanting to do well. And you know what it's like. I mean, I think it's the same in every single profession. The more you want it, the less it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And this is it. I mean, I can remember many years ago Ian Wright talking about goal scoring droughts, and about he always used to see him saying, you've got to stop thinking about getting the ball in the goal and start aiming at the water bottles the goalkeeper lines up and do anything apart from think about the goal. Les Ferdinand used to say that you have when you have patches like this, you've got to kick everything at the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think maybe that's just it.
Yeah.
You know, that is just it, Rich. I think that, you know, we need to get you in there just to have a word with him. You can be a psychologist, because I think he just needs to just whenever he gets a chance to shoot. I mean, he's a bloody skillful player. You know, he's got great feet. He's got great technique. He's got a lot to his game. I just think maybe, like you said, just have a number of shots, and then some that will go in, and then he's going to be off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a bit like, Rashford the other day, he was having a really, really quiet game and he hadn't done a huge amount. And he scored against Woolwich by toe poking it in true primary school playground fashion,
my sort of style, that is. I'm like one of those players that you push their head and the foot goes and then it goes in. Yeah.
Could go anywhere. That's what he needs. One of them lads.
Yeah. It's a beauty.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh dear. Okay, so let's look forward then. Well, sadly, we got the international break. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the international breaks anyway, but at the moment, it just feels like, oh my God, we got ages now to wait for Ange Ball. So I'm going to ask you,
they always seem to come. They never come as a blessing to us, do they?
No.
Some sides they lose.
We'll probably get injuries as well.
Yeah. Well, some sides they'll lose 4 or 5 on the bounce, and collectively they couldn't score in a fucking bookies or what have you, and then they go on the international break and come back refreshed and charged and go on a winning run. It always seems to happen in the opposite direction for us, that we're doing all right. They all fuck off. They come back missing a kneecap and, half a dozen toes gone between them. And that's it. We can't buy a win for a month.
I'm going to see if you can avoid the swear jar now. When was the last time that we looked forward to a game like we do now? You can't, can you?
I can't, no. I can't. I'm actually, the funny thing about it is it's not been since we left White Hart Lane.
No.
It's that, I mean, not even him. It's that, because it all went belly up when we went to Wembley, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when the playing style changed. I always say that I think it's because the Wembley pitch was loads bigger than the White Hart Lane pitch. And so I think he had to tactically adapt that press to cope with a bigger space, but that's when I really first started. I mean, obviously we had some bloody great wins when we were at Wembley, and some of it was wonderful, but it's a soulless bloody place. And even though it's only 40 minutes from where I live, it's it was a great trip in and out. It was a horrible bloody place to go.
For me and my son, it was like 2 hours there, 2 hours back, and we had season tickets as well for there. So it was like, oh man, what a I mean, fortunately we had some fairly decent games there, but it was a schlep, that's for sure.
I had a season ticket that while we were there and all, and I remember being there. I remember what was that day we played Cardiff. I think we beat them 2-0 and Neil Warnock was the manager, and one of their lads nearly cut somebody in half with a tackle, and then Warnock was complaining because he got booked. That game, and it was pissing down with rain. And me and my mate Chris were sat on our programmes that had turned to papier-mâché in all the wet in the seat because our seats were just
absolutely through. So all those bottom levels, weren't they? They were just absolutely, and it was bouncing off the ground, wasn't it? I think I remember.
Oh, fuck it. That summed the whole time up for me. Yeah. And so to answer your question, like, it wasn't since before we went there that I really looked forward to going to a game or watching a game. Because we did play some fuck awful football under the last 18 months of Poch's reign. We had some bloody lucky wins.
Yeah.
We had some really big wins that we really shouldn't have had. It was not really a nice watch for a while. And obviously everything that came after that has been just a bloody disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a brief window when Conte first took over, I went to an awful lot of those games in that sort of half season that he did. And there was a brief window when that was quite good fun, but it was only a brief window.
Yeah. No, I agree. But at the moment, I mean, we'll look ahead to like how everyone's viewing Ange, but I think you're right. Is like currently it just feels like this stadium, it's had its moments, but it's never quite yet felt like home fully. No. There's lots about it that is, you in terms of the way it's been put together, and the attention to detail to that, with the old stadium being part of the flooring and everything like that. But it's not quite yet felt like the same way that we felt like when we had the other, when we were in the old White Hart Lane.
No,
I can. Sorry, go on, mate.
I was going to say, you're veering dangerously into my academic territory here, so you'll have to tell me to shut up, But I mean, there is a process it's a kind of grieving that people go through when they lose something. Like we do get attached to these places in the same, not quite the same way as people, but there's a similar sort of emotional connection. The phenomenon is called solastalgia, and it's like a physical embodiment of grief, And as nice as the new stadium is, you cannot take something that you have such an emotional connection to, like White Hart Lane, and just plonk a new thing there and say, yeah, but the floor's made out of the old one, and expect it has to go through. You have to go through that acclimatization process. It's like if you move into a new house, you've got to paint the walls and put carpets down before it's home. You can't just open the front door and go, that's it, we're here.
And also you have to make new memories, and special memories. So it's like I suppose anything like if you move on to a new partner, or you as you say, a new house, there's got to be. It takes time because there has to be sort of for an emotional baggage, I suppose, that you have to build up. And the stadium hasn't quite had it yet. We've had glimpses, we've had moments, but I do feel at the moment there's, hopefully it lasts, but there feels like a sense of hope and a sense of optimism. If that can stay and we can build on that and we can have those moments like we were just talking about, then it will become home. Then it will become, somewhere that we feel is ours, a fortress, whatever you want to call it. But it is just going to take time. But it's starting to feel more that way now, because I suppose there's that sense of optimism, which let's say hope lasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that good, bad, or ugly will eventually build an emotional connection to the place. We've had some glimpses of it. I think the trouble with it is even the highlights that we've had there so far, with apart from one or two notable exceptions, but for the most part, the football's been fucking awful. I mean, we've bought Manchester City to death half a dozen times, but we haven't played them off the park. No. We've taken a couple of big scalps at home, but we've nothing really that meaningful yet. And of course, the other side of it is there's all this other stuff that goes with it that I don't know what your experience of the stadium was, but when I first went there, I had a season ticket in what was the Paxton, up in the upper section there above the away fans in the corner, and the fucking stewards were a nightmare. They were just a nightmare. And anytime we tried to get anything going, I mean, this is ultimately how I ended up on this podcast, because I knew Jamie, because he was the guy that was doing the Paxton Upper, try to get an atmosphere sort of little campaign thing. And that's how I met Jamie. And in the end, that's what led me to the VAR side. But it was so bad that in pockets of the stadium where there were people like Jay that were going round going, we can do something about this. And of course, over a few years, people have gradually moved. If I go, I generally go to a different part of the ground now. Thanks to my mate Dave, I tend to go down in the posh seats, down really nicely. I always used to sit, east lower down by I generally used to sit behind the fucking pylon, I could never see what's going on. in the reduced view seats. But I'm down, and they're now like the posh seats down there. And thanks to shout out to my mate Dave who has helped me get down there. That's improved, and people are doing that now, moving around the ground. They're finding each other again, finding their little click, building up new rapports, and that helps.
And finally, the club are listening. Like we did say this the last pod, but it's worth reiterating in case anyone didn't listen to it. That that they've listened to the fans and they've created that singing section. They've got the drummer back. I don't know if they'll use that trumpeter again. I hope they do because it kicked it off really nicely in that game. Like you were talking about Jamie, who tried to get something going in the Paxton, but they weren't listening at that point. But now they seem to be. Let's hope that's the beginning of it all, because it does make a massive difference. Because they whenever anything died down, that singing section started up, and the drummer then kept it going, and the atmosphere is also, it is. I know it's kind of like reciprocal. And or symbiotic, whatever you want to call it, right? But they give us something to get excited about, and we give them something in return. But they are, they're doing their part now, and and it just and this is coming at the right time, I think. And so looking forward, it does feel like there are more exciting times ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a big transition as a club. We've rebuilt the stadium. We've changed managers several times, tried all of these, these quick fixes that haven't fixed anything. The team's rolled over. We've lost the superstar. We've got a new superstar in the making with James Maddison. We've got we're beginning to get some sort of team identity. We've got a manager that actually sounds like he wants to manage the club. All just seems like it might just work.
Yeah. Now, I want to believe, as Mulder once said. So, yeah, I mean, even you even look at this is unusual. Like everyone, even including the media, seems to love Ange. We're getting this kind of like following that they all want to be called mate from him. And I don't know if it's them softening us up for when it all goes tits up and they can give us a good shoeing, but it kind of doesn't feel like that. It feels like, do you know what, for the first time in a long time, perhaps since right, I'm gonna have to put a quid in the swear jar, but since Pochettino's early kind of like stint when we were most people's second favorite club, we could be on the verge of that once again.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting thing that happened today. I mean, this is going to sound like an apocryphal story because it seems too convenient, but I was teaching in the university today, and one of my very good friends and colleagues there, Joe, is a West Ham fan, and he's died in the wall. He can't help it, and I haven't seen him since before the summer. It was the first day for a lot of us back on site today, and he sort of came trundling over and he was going, oh, God, because, of course, they're up by us in the table, and I said, oh, have you got a fucking nosebleed being up with the big boys, and he laughed and he was sort of saying, we had a bit of this about Ward-Prowse, and he was going, you don't seem to miss Harry Kane and we don't miss Declan Rice, and, there was a bit of friendly banter and that, and off it went. Anyway, later on, I was sat in one of the tea rooms working on my laptop. And I could hear Joe in the corridor talking to one of the other members of staff about football. And they did a bit about, West Ham, and the other guy's an Oxford City fan, and Oxford City are doing pretty well. They're conference now. They're only, they're a good campaign away from being in League Two. And then they talk about it for 5 minutes. And then the other guy went to Joe, what about the fucking Spurs, though, eh? And Joe went, I know, ain't they playing? And they didn't know I was round the corner. Joe's going, oh, man, ain't they playing really well? Fucking hell, that guy's playing good football. And he's a proper dyed-in-the-wool West Ham fan. Normally, the only time you hear from Joe is he'll send you an email after they've beaten us.
I mean, he
didn't do any of that to me, but...
Of course not. No. Like a friend of mine the other day, he said, see, this is the thing about deluded Spurs fans. He says, West Ham, we think like, we've got 10 points. Well, we're 30 points from safety, but you think you're 10 points nearer the title. I said, yeah, because we're optimistic and you're defeatist. I said, that's the difference. We have ambition. You have no.
Yeah. Although to be fair, because I've been around for a few years, I do sort of look at it and get by Christmas and go, well, if it all goes wrong, we ain't going to get relegated.
Yeah. Maybe we should adopt that.
You know,
Dear.
I used to share a flat with a Charlton fan about 20 years ago, but back when Charlton were in the top flight, you know, and we used to have like a standing, like a sweepstake in the flat about who would reach 40 points first. And I tell you what, it was often them.
They look, I mean, I got to say, you know, we risk with this sort of digressing too much into, you know, flattering our rivals, but they spent the money well, haven't they? They've rebuilt their midfield well, and I think they'll be okay this year.
Yeah,
sadly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Chelsea look like a fucking shambles. So that is,
and
silver lining.
Their fixture list is not forgiving, is it?
No, the next one's coming up to Christmas. I could see his head being firmly on the block. And like I say, I've got a few friends that support and follow him, and they really, really want Poch out already.
Well, it's funny because I've got Chelsea in my family, you know. I've got a few Chelsea in my family, and those guys. I mean, they don't ever have anything nice to say about Spurs. They're not ambivalent Chelsea fans, you know. They're actual Chelsea fans, and they actually still quite like him. They're prepared to give him time. They think he's the right man for the job. And these are not, you know, people that are generally known for being considerate and or patient. You know, they make all their major decisions with their neck. You know, it's these guys, and they're still fully behind him. But you say we saw the fixtures the other day. You know, they've got Woolwich, they've got us, they've got City, haven't they? They've got Liverpool. No, they've just had Liverpool. You know,
it's
tough.
It's not really tough.
Yeah.
Good. Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, with two competitions that we're in, do you think that's a help or a hindrance to the players assimilating Ange's tactics?
I don't know. I don't. I mean, I quite like the idea that until January we're generally a game a week, aren't we? You know, and I think that's going to be to the benefit. I think it helps the squad in terms of fitness more than tactical awareness, because I think that extra rest period is going to really, really play to our advantage, considering that we might be a bit light in one or two areas.
Well, you know, it gives us the opportunity to avoid, I suppose, injuries. That's one of the things. Fitness, as you say, to work on that, tactical acumen and following his style. So it gives us, you know, there are positives from it. I mean, don't forget that year that the Leicester won the title. They just had the league, and then they basically quickly dropped out of both cups, and that's all they had, one game a week.
Yeah, well, that was the year that Conte won the title at Chelsea. It was the same.
Yeah, you know,
I think that year that Conte played, I think it was the year that Conte won the league at Chelsea. I might be wrong about this, so don't shout all over the replies on Twitter or whatever if I am. I think we played 20 games more than them that season.
Yeah. So how far can we go then, Rich?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was all for us having a really good run in the League Cup, and I thought they were going to give it a bit of credence this year. So I've no idea. I really don't know. I don't have any expectations. I think, you know, anything 6 or above is going to be a really decent year for us, you know, because it is a transition year, regardless of how well it's going already. I really, really, really would fucking like a cup, though. You know, really would like a cup. You know, I was 12 years old the last time we won the FA Cup, and I'll be 45 in about 3 weeks.
Wow, man, that it's hard to compute, isn't it, really? I mean, there was a point when we were the holders of the most FA Cups.
Yeah, we were the FA Cup club.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah,
and we're still there with our eight wins, and you know, I mean, now they're into double figures, aren't they? All the other fucking lot.
Yeah, well, we need to win something soon. Otherwise, we're going to have West Ham ramming their checkered trade trophy down our neck, or whatever you call it.
No.
The IKEA waste paper basket trophy.
I did say to Joe, I said, "Oh, I did feel for you on the night, though." I said, "But it turned out they couldn't afford enough silver to make an actual fucking trophy." Because have you seen it?
Yeah,
Looks like somebody's taken a Venetian blind and rolled it up.
pulled it apart. It's kind of,
Yeah.
fucking hell, yeah. Well, at the beginning of the season, mate, Spurs were kind of tipped for having a dodgy season and maybe even going down. Now we're 20-1 to win the Prem.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's. I don't know. I quietly think that we could have a really, really good, strong league campaign. I think some of it's going to depend also, obviously, on other people, but. I don't think Newcastle are going to carry on shitting miracles without a hiccup. It's all gone remarkably well for them at the minute. Eddie Howe's a good coach.
Well, they've had a bit of a bad run in the last match or two, haven't they? So
and I mean, this is the interesting thing because he's recruited well, but they've got all the money in the world and all that now, but they haven't done what Man City did and gone and bought superstars, right? He's been very much more sensible about it, but I think that might come at a cost, in the fact that their acceleration into superstardom might not be quite so seamless as they hope. They're in the Champions League this year again, aren't they? And it's going to be an experience.
That's going to be a big distraction because you really do need a deep squad and for that. And I'm not sure they're quite there yet. And they've had a iffy, up and down start to the season. Wait till they start playing the Champions League games, and I think there's going to be a real wake up call for them.
Well, I mean, if they get, I haven't seen. I don't know if the draws have even been made because I've not seen. But depending on what their group looks like, if they come out of it into the UEFA Cup, then their fixture list gets astronomical.
I think they got the group of death, mate. I think they got PSG and a few others in their group.
They won't be seeded, will they? That's the thing.
No.
So I'm not surprised, and they could come out of that in the UEFA Cup and then have to travel to Tractoristan to play Massey Ferguson FC on a Thursday afternoon, and then come home to play Manchester City at the weekend or somebody. I mean, it's going to get quite sticky, I think, if they're not careful, and that could play to our advantage with our short season.
Well, I'm going to try and be really objective here about our where we could end up. I'm going to say we were on for the double.
Yeah. I was expecting that. that's the considered objective opinion, isn't it? I mean, that's what all the sensible pundits are saying.
Oh yeah. It's obvious.
You were a teacher, weren't you?
Yeah. For 23 years. Just
what an English teacher was you?
I was for a while, about 4 or 5 years. I was an English teacher, and then
Did you get sacked from that for not knowing what objective means?
Yeah, they let me rise to the ranks of assistant head teacher, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
But more, obviously, when they realised what a chump I was, that's when I got out. So. Anyway, I don't know. I mean, it'd be bloody lovely to think something magical could happen. I mean, I would love a good, honest to God top 4 finish in a fucking FA Cup. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I can't wait, mate. We'll be able to then empty that swear jar and have a right old good.
We're gonna
knees up.
If we keep adding to it at this rate, and if we get to the cup final in May or June or whenever it is next year. We will be able to carry all that money into Wembley Stadium in great big, corn bags, seed bag, dump it all on the counter. And knowing Wembley as it was the last time I went, we'll be able to get fucking half a Carlsberg each for it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it'll be no good at the Spurs Stadium because they're cashless. So it'll have to be, Anyway. So let's look at just predictions for the next home game, which seems like a bloody eternity away. We've got Sheffield United at home next. What do you make of Sheffield United? Will they stay up? I think they're odds on to go down, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think they're the force that they were the last time they came up by a long stretch, are they?
No.
And I would be delighted if they came down to Spurs and we gave them a right good fucking seeing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spend a lot of my life on the M1 at the minute, and I spend quite a lot of it sat in fucking traffic near Sheffield.
M6 is not much better, is it?
Yeah.
All 50 mile an hour zones everywhere you go.
Yeah. So it's beginning to take on the sort of slightly apocalyptic mantle of places that I fucking hate now, because every time I go, oh look, roadworks or another car crash or some idiot's broken down in the fast lane or something. So yeah, Sheffield can fuck off and they can come to Spurs and have a good hammer in for it.
It's terrorised the bastards. They deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you going for, mate? Prediction?
3-0.
Yep. I'm going to go 4-1. 4-1. Right.
Yeah.
And on that note,
just on that note, before we finish, very quickly,
go on, mate.
Do you think 5-2 flattered Burnley? Because I do.
Yeah, going back to what you said before, we were wasteful.
I mean, it's the two that really. I know we've got to expect this with Ange, haven't we? But it rankled me. That second goal of theirs, I was really not happy about that at all.
No. Yeah. No.
Thought, you know, really, we should have come out of there with a clean sheet, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Actually, you know, in terms of, you know, we were wasteful, but I actually looking at what you're saying there, you're talking more about conceding those goals. I think we will do that occasionally, but we will, you know, outscore them. But then when we get that right, the whole thing, I think we'll cut down on those areas because the system will be, you know, the patterns of play will be just much more effective. I can see us. You know, bear in mind that we had the previous two games were two nils, and we kept a clean sheet. And you know, Vicario's looking amazing. He did he's had some blinding saves recently. He looks a real quality player.
What really got me about Vicario at the weekend that really pleased me immensely was he pulled off a save quite late in the second half, and I accidentally put bloody 606 on afterwards, right? And Chris Sutton was whining like hell about it. Goalkeepers shouldn't celebrate saves. They're doing their job and all this. And I thought, I first thought, fuck off, Chris. Yeah. And then I thought, brilliant. If he's getting under people's skin already,
yeah. But that's what they're like, though, isn't it? Those sort of pundits are just they can't bear to see us doing well, and that's not just, you know, I'm not playing a victim mentality. I couldn't give a toss. It doesn't actually bother me anymore, you know. But but the way that Gary Neville recently, and don't get me wrong, you know, so I quite like Gary Neville's punditry sometimes, but the way he was smarting at, you know, Tottenham being arrogant and them doing these Hollywood saves, and then Roy Keane as well talking about the fact that, you know, the Spurs need to just realise, you know, what type of club they are, and then you've got Chris Sutton. I think this is born out of them getting a bit nervous that we might actually be quite good.
Yeah, because they wanted none of it. When we had pounding the swear jar, Pochettino and Harry Kane doing well, they hated it. They just wanted them two. They wanted Pochettino and Kane at Man United because as far as they're concerned, that's the right and proper way to rule the world. Yeah, and anything that gets under their skin. I mean, I seem to remember, didn't Ange have a bit of a pop at Gary Neville the other day? You know, he's about him. Yeah. Oh well, I'm just copy what Pep does or something. Yeah. You know, yeah. So I like that, and I like that they're on his radar, and I like that, you know, and anything that makes people like Chris Sutton angry. Well, Chris Sutton's just generally angry. I don't know what, but I mean, to be honest, I probably would be if I had to spend that much time with Robbie Savage. But you know, the likes of fucking Roy Keane, you know, he can fuck all the way to the sun and then just keep going, you know.
But a lot of those, like we said the last time, are just basically they're playing a character now, aren't they? They're not. It's not real punditry. It's not real evaluation. They all talk in cliches, and they've all been told, I suspect, is to basically pick a character. Who are you going to be? Well, Roy Keane, you can be the baddie. You know, you can. It's a joke.
Roy Keane, that was meant to be, you know, I read his book and he reckoned he was a Tottenham fan when he grew up, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Souness the same. Yeah. Although our mutual friend Tom, you know, has met Souness on a few occasions, and apparently he reckons he's an absolutely adorable fella and he's the salt of the earth and he loves Tottenham. And I think that don't come across.
No.
You know.
Well, that's what. Yeah, so it kind of falls into that,
Yeah,
jurisdiction of them being told basically to sort of play a trope, play a kind of
yeah,
play a character, if you like. I suspect that is partly what's going on here.
yeah.
Anyway, right, we've
Yeah,
waffled on enough, mate, and I'm sure everyone's
yeah.
bored shitless of what we're saying now. So, just a big shout out to Redemption. I'm going to try and get along there on the next home game. Are you going to that home game, mate?
No, I think I'm still away in Italy at that point.
Right.
I'm hoping to be. I can't remember who it is the home game after that, but I'm hoping to
Liverpool.
be there for that. Yeah. Oh,
I'll,
yeah. It's that. Yeah.
yeah, I'll be in Santorini.
Oh, yeah. Well, between us, we'll make a bloody fan.
We need to do. We'll get together one point. We've got a lot of money in that swear jar to spend, mate. So
Yeah. We'll have to take it to one of them Coinstar things in Sainsbury's and turn it into credits so that we can spend it at the stadium. Anyway.
Okay, mate. On that note, come on, you Spurs.
Up the Spurs.
There's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.